It's a pleasure to be here with you. Let me tell you a little bit about myself before I talk about this country. I want to talk about myself before I talk about America, because at one time I hated America. My father was founding member of the Communist Party of Puerto Rico. He was one of 12 men who in 1959 gathered together to found the Communist Party and to destroy America. I remember he used to gather us in our small home to talk about the evils of empire, of imperialism, that America was the enemy of humanity and it was my sacred duty to destroy America. He used to go to Cuba constantly and used to gather us to listen to Fidel Castro's never-ending speeches. But I learned how to hate this country. My mother at the other side was whatever my father was. This is the 1960s Puerto Rico, and women were subservient. She had some faith, so she used to sneak us to go to Mass with friends without anyone knowing about it, because my father would not allow. My children cannot go to church. God is the opium of the people. It's the trick of the capitalists that keep you thinking about heaven while they are having a good time here on earth. So I grew up with this double consciousness. On one side, my father's ideas about socialism and revolution, my true religion. But I had these ideas about God and these inklings about this thing that they call God. So I grew up in that kind of environment. Let me read to you very briefly about the philosophy of my father that I embrace with all my heart from his FBI file. I have his FBI file that relates 50 years of communist activity and tells you that he was really a soldier for revolution. I'm going to translate because it's in Spanish. He used to say, proletarian class struggle is the foundation that will bring about the collapse of the capitalist institution. The function of our party is to expand this struggle from the present economic phase to a political phase. That is, shift from claiming rights against particular corporations and capitalist empires into a war against the whole system, claiming profound social, economic, and political transformations. In other words, the entire social arrangement is to collapse into the affairs and institutions of the state. The state became the embodiment of society, and one day we will bring about heaven on earth. And that was my belief. And I still had these inklings about God, so what a good Catholic and communist boy to do? I joined the Jesuit order, of course. This is the 1980s Puerto Rico and Central America, and I joined the Jesuit order to become a Jesuit priest because I wanted to go to Nicaragua to study philosophy with the great liberation theologians of the time, Ignacio Ellacuría, Juan Luis II, Gustavo Gutierrez. These were the men that I idolized, and they were going to help me merge that double consciousness so I could play religion and be a communist at the same time. But before I was to go to Nicaragua to study philosophy, something happened in Nicaragua, and some of us who are older may remember when the 7 Jesuits were murdered in El Salvador, right there in the border between El Salvador and Nicaragua, and I was going to be living in that house. They decided then to not send us to Nicaragua, and frustrated and angry, I left seminary immediately. I didn't have a vocation to the priesthood. I just wanted to play the revolutionary priest, go to Nicaragua, be part of the revolution, and destroy America. And at that time, I made a great mistake for which I will always be grateful. I came to the guts of the monster. I decided to come to America, and I came to the University of Southern Mississippi, of all places. I come to Deep South, and my lungs were filled with the breath of freedom. Even though I did not know at the time, for the first time, I challenged my safe assumptions about America. I had learned how to intellectually defend socialism, but I had never challenged the basic assumptions about socialism. And before I finish, there are two things I have learned in this journey of embracing the beautiful ideas of freedom that this country has taught me. The first one is that there has to be a connection between reward and accomplishment. When I came to America, I had good grades in the university, and these Americans paid me my studies just because I had good grades. I used to say, this is not supposed to be happening, you know, this is supposed to be the hell of the workers, and I hate these people's guts, and they are rewarding me. But it began to see that connection, and we are losing that connection as a country. And unless we bring back that connection between reward and accomplishment, we cannot help the poor. I don't care what we do for people, how many bags of food we stuff with stuff, we will hurt people. Our communities, our poor communities, cannot breathe under the weight of the free stuff we dump at them. And we treat them like animals that only need a mouth to be fed and a body to be clothed, instead of seeing them as unique and unrepeatable human persons made in the image and likeness of God with the capacity, the moral capacity of self-realization. That is what will end poverty. And that is the destiny of my beautiful brothers and sisters in the Black African American community. But the second thing I learned was that something I didn't like very much is that when I came to America and I stood here, there was already written in the law a remedy against my discrimination. The law had made me a victim by fiat, had told me, you cannot make it. There is some white guy behind every tree just waiting to make your life miserable. How can you really progress? How can you see hope in that kind of assumption? Instead of telling me, these are my brothers, they told me, beware, these are your enemies. And that is not what we believe. And that's why I'm here today to teach, and that's why the Freedom and Virtue Institute exists, to teach the ideas that America taught me, a connection between reward and accomplishment, and that we are unique and unrepeatable human persons made in the very likeness, the image of God Himself. Thank you.